There was a tweet this week that I really couldn't believe that I saw, and I want to read it to you and get your thoughts because it was kind of shocking to me. It came from NPR, which is obviously as hard left of an outlet as you're going to get. They're big defenders of the regime and pretty much anything that the regime has to do. And this was about what's going on in Ukraine. Let me just find this because this is a really big deal, and I want to read it exactly correctly. This tweet is from July 21st. And this is NPR. Since the start of the war with Russia, the Biden administration has mostly ignored Ukraine's corruption history. Now, July, questions have resurfaced about its suitability as a recipient of massive infusions of aid. If you said this 3 months ago, it's tinfoil hat, Alex Jones conspiracy theory, crazy place, right?
Well, you're a Russian agent.
Right, you're a Russian agent. That's Putin's propaganda. You're just might as well be getting funneling money from the Kremlin. Now this is NPR. Can you unpack this tweet and how what's going on here? Because it is baffling to me. There's just so many moving pieces.
Well, I saw that, Michael, and I know you know the answer, but you're just letting me as
I don't
answer
because it's shocking that they're so brazenly doing such a 180. I'm not acknowledging that they're doing that. So is it about Putin? Is it about Biden? I don't know the answer.
Well, here's what we know, and it's they know that the Biden scandal's coming out. They try to suppress it during the campaign. The laptop, right. The hookers, and the crack is terrible. Especially kids, women look like they're 12 years old. That's all horrible. And the media covering it up and not letting anybody cover it, a few years ago during the campaign is terrible. Even if we were wrong to cover Hunter Biden, we would have a right to do it. But it was all real. Now his phone's hacked, probably by the deep state against Biden, because he's a puppet. They want to get rid of him and kind of move the next, group in, Kamala Harris and Michelle Obama or Gavin Newsom, a combination of those three. So what's happening is they cannot hide the hundreds of billions laundered during the Obama administration, and then during Trump, because Trump wasn't in control of it. We have the Biden tapes now where he's threatening the then president of Ukraine when Biden was leaving office that, your personal safety and everything is, you better cover up these IMF loans. So this isn't 65 billion or 69 billion that they've already done since February. This is not another 100 billion. The numbers are approaching 200 billion total if you add it all up as a money laundering operation to send the money over there and then direct it back into these companies that Mitt Romney's son and Nancy Pelosi's son, but not just Biden, but I mean, there's like hundreds of Democrats and Republicans who are making money off this. So they know they can't hide it. They know they can't cover it up anymore. And they know that Zelensky, despite all these heavy weapons, the Russians are willing to lose 15 generals. They're willing to lose. The numbers are probably 100,000 Russians. They see this as World War II. The Russians lost 20-something million people. So they're like, screw it. So they know the Russians are going to win, even though they're up against more high-tech weapons because they have the will. And so they're kind of getting ready to give Putin Eastern Ukraine, give Poland part of Western Ukraine. They're getting ready to split it up and getting ready to scapegoat Joe Biden, who deserves it, but he's still a minion, and Zelensky. And so that's why they're doing this, is because if they could have beat Russia and had Russia back off, then they would have had it as a proxy state, done all that. But instead, they're getting ready to basically blame their patsies because Vladimir Putin so far has won the war. Now, it may be a Pyrrhic victory. I mean, 100,000 dead Russians. And I mean, we're talking CIA drones. And when the Russians are in a real war over there, and they're like 20th century against 21st century. The Russians have 21st century nukes, 21st century aircraft, but you can't use those in ground wars. The U.S., people that run it, have 21st century, robots, drones, switchblade drones. I mean, the Russians are fighting literally Skynet right now. And the U.S. Special Forces, I know a lot of guys won't tell me the details, but I mean, the Green Berets, the Navy SEALs, they were there before, they're there now. They bet the CIA is running the war. U.S. troops are getting killed. It is a full-on war. The U.S. is at war through NATO with Russia, and they're starting to maybe say, we better just go ahead and cut this off because the Russians just don't care. They're just sending troops in, and it's like Stalingrad, and they're winning.
Oh, so from their perspective, they thought this would be kind of a cakewalk for them, that Putin would be pushed back. There'd be this international community against Putin. He'd be, whatever, price he'd have to pay, then they could be the heroes. Look, we beat the new Hitler, and then everyone claps.
And instead, the ruble's up, Russian oil exports are up, Russian morale's up because they're willing to die. And you can't beat people like the U.S. had 100 times the technology of the North Vietnamese, but they were willing to fight. And whenever you can't beat resistance, resistance is victory, and the Russians are just winning. It's a fact.
So from your perspective, because there definitely does seem to be a very recent, I'd say during this month, a massive sea change in terms of the regime and the corporate press, in terms of how they're reporting on Biden. And it seems to be very much that someone somewhere made, I'll put my Alex Jones tinfoil hat. Someone somewhere made a phone call. They made a decision. They're like, all right, like, let's ride this out. This is a sunk cost. We can't turn this boat around. And they're just going to cut their losses with Biden and move on, because they're playing the long game, and he doesn't even have a long game.
Exactly. At 100%, it was the Pope. Say what you want about the Pope. The Catholic Church is incredibly corrupt, has problems. The Pope is a big political operator, a globalist. The Pope a month ago said, okay, NATO started the war. It needs to end now, because he knows they're losing. It's not a thing of like, oh, we need to make a peace deal because we're wimps. It's they're losing because the Russians are like, I don't see it as a sign of weakness that you got 15 dead Russian generals. I don't see it as a sign of, I mean, that's a sign of commitment.
Okay.
And that means they're actually humans in the field. And they may have drones and satellites and robots, but the Russians will take every square inch of the ground and kill the soldiers, the Azov Nazis, and you can't stop people that won't stop.